Hey there guys, how are you? I'm wearing my Breaking Bad t-shirt for obvious reasons. Anyway, today we're talking about episode 10, season 5, and the episode's called Buried of Breaking Bad. And what happened was last night, I meant to do this video last night right after the episode, but after it was over, I got a little bit tired. I fell asleep, I woke up 5 hours later, I went downstairs to the refrigerator, ate some pickles at like 4 o'clock in the morning. I don't know what was happening. So let's just talk about the episode. By the way, in the beginning of the episode, you have Jesse, and he lost his damn mind. You know, he's throwing cash out the window, and then he goes to a playground, he's on a merry-go-round, spinning around in circles. And by the way, at the end of the episode, we catch up with Jesse once again, but we'll talk about that. I think my theory is coming true. We open up and we actually get the aftermath of what happened in the first episode, where Hank and Walt have their confrontation in the garage, which, by the way, every time I click my garage door opener, it just feels more epic than it really is. And Hank basically comes to the conclusion early on in the episode where he confronts Skyler with his findings. He didn't quite know how much she knew, but in reality, she's holding a lot back. And she's kind of going along with the ride to see what Hank knows. That's what I got from it. And I like Skyler in this episode. First of all, by the end of the episode, she was like, well, I don't think Hank really knows anything, so why should we admit to anything? And I like that. And you could tell that Walt was a little bit surprised, because Walt, by the end of the episode, was ready to, he was like, I'll give myself up. I don't care. As long as you keep the money and the kids get it. And she's like, well, we can't do that. There's no way we can do both of those and get away with it. So yeah, Hank in this episode is between a rock and a hard place. You know, he's a DEA agent. Like, how do you go about saying, yeah, we caught the guy. I know who he is. By the way, he's my brother-in-law. And Hank knows that if he says this, his career is over. So he wants to go in there with everything he has to present a good case. And I like that Hank acknowledged that dilemma that he's in, because that's exactly what I was thinking. But here's what I'm waiting for, because I think Walt has another card to play, because Walt could also say, you know what? How about I just present evidence that, you know, if you take me down, I'm going to go in there saying that you are part of it. You know, look, I paid for your treatments out of my own pocket, and I'm your brother-in-law. How could you have not known it was me? Walt takes the money from the storage unit, which just seemed like kind of a risky place to put it in the first place. And he takes it and puts it in these barrels and buries it out in the desert. And he writes down these coordinates where he buries it, and he posts them up on the refrigerator. He kind of hides, you know, the coordinates, I guess you could say. And I feel like that's going to play a bigger part by the end of this season. Somehow, some way, not quite sure how that's going to work out, but that's something's going to happen with those coordinates. Could you imagine burying like 6 tubs of cash out in the desert? And by the way, talking about the money, Saul Goodman's bodyguard, the big black guy who always falls asleep standing up, my favorite part of this entire episode was when he goes to retrieve the money from the storage unit to take back to Walt, he just lays down on the stack of cash. Like, he just lays there and goes to sleep almost. And I'm like, I was watching that and I was like, that's something I would do. Could you imagine how good that would feel, you know? That would be the most comfortable and relaxing sleep I've ever had in my life. I don't need dreams when I'm sleeping like that, because I know in reality I'm sleeping on a pile of cash. Okay, let's talk about the big action climax of the episode. You have Lydia, and she comes back into the picture. And essentially she takes out the competition in this episode, and she steals all the equipment, and guess who also came back? Todd. I call Todd Matt Damon's cheap younger look-alike. I mean, really, that guy looks kind of like Matt Damon. Anyway, Todd's an interesting character to me, because he comes across so polite, but he's also, he'll do anything to get the job done. But don't forget, you know, Heisenberg taught Todd how to make meth. And let's talk about the ending to this episode. Now, last week I theorized that Jesse was pretty much going to be Hank's go-to guy to taking down Walt, and I think that's where we're going with that. Maybe, maybe not. And at the very end of the episode, you have Hank just going into the room. So I'm curious to see if Jesse gives up Walt. It's like, how is Jesse going to explain that $5 million in cash in his duffel bag? I don't know, maybe the next episode opens up with Saul Goodman getting him out of it. I'm not quite sure. And the thing about Breaking Bad is every episode always builds up my anticipation for the next episode, and that's what this one did. So I'm curious to see how this goes. And the thing I'm most curious about is seeing Todd and his crew and how they play a part continuing on. Okay guys, so that's my take on this episode. Let me know what yours is down below, or what do you think is going to happen next week? Like, how do you think this is going to play out? Anyway guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.